welcome to Strictly Money at the News Forum, where all voices matter. I'm your host, Saijal Patel. Thanks for joining. How should our government regulate cryptocurrencies? This is a question that comes up time and time again from crypto advocates, the critics, and mainstream investors alike. On one hand, many enthusiasts believe that crypto provides a more equitable monetary system away from perceived regulatory overreach. But others think that some governance is necessary to protect investors and allow for innovation. Justin Hartzman is actively involved in shaping the crypto landscape. He is CEO and co-founder of Coinsmart, and he joins me now. Hi, Justin. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Saijal. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, crypto regulation, very controversial. It's not black and white. There's lots to consider. From your stance, is the regulation that we're seeing or you're seeing so far headed in a productive direction?
It's a great question, and I think it is a little bit more black and white now than it ever has been before. But there is a lot of nuances to it, of course, when there's so much that's happening in a space that's so innovative, and things are changing all the time. So it's very hard for any regulator anywhere to keep up. But they have been doing a good job in my mind. Sometimes we feel a little restricted in what we can offer to our customers, things that they want or they're going seeking in other locations to do. But they've really saved some people in this situation. Let's look what happened here specifically in Canada with our restrictions. We were not able to allow our users to do things like DeFi lending. Well, we know what happened there over the last 90 days or so. The Terra collapse, Celsius, Voyager, the list goes on of all these amazing companies that grew super fast that collapsed outside of, an event that was really a black swan event in the market. And because of that, we were lucky. We sat on the other side of it where our customers weren't in those products. We weren't lending out to some of those names I mentioned, or 3AC, which is Three Arrows Capital. And that saved our clients from having a loss of capital in that situation. So regulation is important. It needs to be done correctly. And I think they're thinking about it in the right ways. As long as they continue to work with us and innovate at the same time, I think we'll get to a place that's good for everybody across the world.
What specifically, Justin, are regulators grappling with? I mean, and you mentioned that, it's moving at lightning speed, right? Innovation. So I have to think that's one. What else?
The reality of the situation here is that they need to understand it very well before they can make the change. And the fact that it's changing so quickly, how do they keep up with that, with the backlog of individuals who are trying to be regulated at this given time based on the current market conditions and how we've been regulated before? And then on top of that, they have to look at how they've regulated traditional industries previously and how we can fit into that same box. It's been proven to work for the most part. How do they make it work in our industry at the right time? So they're really grappling with that on an ongoing basis. But it's been great to see that Canadians and Ontario, the OSC here and the CSA have really blazed a lot of trail for other countries to look at the model that has worked. And putting that in place in other countries. I know the UAE is looking at it. MiCA in Europe, or the EEA is modeling around this. That's a really important thing that Canada's blazed a trail a little bit. And maybe even the SEC in the US, which we usually follow here in Canada, is looking at what we've done, because it's a pretty good regime that we have here in Canada. There are some things that are obviously nuanced that aren't great for customers, like the ability to only buy $30,000 worth of cryptos that aren't specific to four that they believe are okay. That's kind of an odd situation, and other restrictions that we have today. But I think we are getting to a good place, and innovation will continue as we continue to push the regulators.
All right, Justin, we only have about a minute left, but it's an interesting point that you raised, right? Because Canada, I mean, we were the first ones to create the Bitcoin ETF. Are we still leading other jurisdictions, or are others catching up?
I think others are starting to catch up, but we are ahead of them. And maybe we can continue that way if we have not only ourselves here at Coinsmart, but other leaders at other crypto asset trading platforms across Canada and blockchain or Web3 environments to continue to push the regulators forward. And we see a lot of the community coming together where we're not looking at this as a competitive us versus you. We need to come together. We need to push regulation forward so the betterment for all the Canadian investors out there and investors worldwide. So it's really nice to see that, because our theory here at Coinsmart is, high tides raises all ships. Well,
Mm,
that's the case. We want to see everyone do well. There's
okay.
only about 3.5% of crypto of people in crypto today.
Yeah.
We need it to get to 10, 20%. Let's do that together.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Justin, before the break, we've been talking about regulation in Canada, regulating crypto currencies. I want to get your thoughts on China, though, because they seem to be taking a very hard stance. They're shutting down exchanges. I just read Singapore now is limiting access to retail investors. What are your thoughts?
Um, it's really interesting. China specifically, we've seen this happen so many times over the years, and if you've been in the space, you for a while, you'll have noticed this. It goes from a point where they are the largest mining operations, they have the most clients in exchanges around the world, and then they say we're banning it. Everyone gone. And then a few months go by and it starts coming back again, and then they ban it again. And then they say it's okay, and we get a tweet from one of the high officials in China, and I've seen the market go from 18,000 to 30,000 overnight just off one tweet that happens there. And this was back in the day. It's interesting to see this. I don't know what their stance and how it will actually pan out in the long run, but I think that they're going to need to. It's such a large population, and the fact that we're trying to decentralize finance, blocking them from that, stopping from that is kind of antithesis to cryptocurrency and to, I think
Mm-hmm.
humanity, in my opinion. So we'll see where it lands over the next little while, but I do think that they'll soften that when they find a way to do it properly that fits within their, country regime, which is good or bad. We'll decide that as the time comes.
Yeah. Let's explore then the pros and cons, if you will. Those who are against regulation went to crypto because it was decentralized, right? They didn't like how fiat currency had been regulated. You can argue that it has been manipulated by central banks. Do they have a fair point?
I think there's lots of things that have gone on over time that we have to look back at for good or for the worst, I guess. I do think there is a point, and ethos is sort of the reason why I got into crypto at the beginning. There's two versions: ethos, decentralized, no government, I don't want control. The other is greed. So you have to look at that, and there's a different market that people coming into it now are looking at as an investment class, which is where it's gotten to with regulation coming into place. But if we look back to the past, they do have a fair point. At the end of the day, why are we subject to walking here, especially here in Canada, walking into a bank, giving them all this information because I want to send $1,000 and I have to do that by a wire, call it 4,000 outside of a email money transfer. I have to actually physically go in there. I have to give them all this data. They have to go. They have to get it approved in the bank. Then have to go to compliance platform to go get them to approve it. And then it may go out that day, go out the next day. We have no idea where our money's sitting. And
Yeah.
eventually it might get to where we want to go. That's really not how anything goes on in any industry today. We have instant access to information. Why don't we have that with our finance, something that's most important to each of our lives outside of health? So
Yeah.
I see it as we need to get past that. We are disrupting banking services. That's why we're having a hard time in the banking industry taking on customers like ourselves, who are a publicly traded company. We are regulated by multiple entities around the world for where we do business. And yet a big five Canadian bank won't take us because the risk appetite isn't there.
Interesting.
Seems odd to me.
Yeah. So, what is the happy medium then, Justin? So, if that's even possible, right? Where do we absolutely need regulatory oversight?
I think that we do need regulatory oversight. I won't say I agree with you if that's what you're saying, and I think that is the case. We have to protect Canadian investors. I would say that in any industry, and we're no different. We're custodians of their money, their fiat or their crypto, and we should be doing the right things, and we should have that oversight. That oversight should not come on the back of the inability to innovate and give products that are safe and secure to those who want them. The fact is that what we're doing with regulatory situation that we have here in Canada today is we're driving customers away from the Canadian market, something that they can actually have their hand on, look at, audit, and understand, to venues around the world to get the items that they want that there's no jurisdiction over here in Canada.
So do you
So
mean,
does that make sense?
yeah, so we only have 30 seconds to the break. You mean fraud protection is a big one?
Totally. Fraud protection is a big thing here. We stand for that. We actually have a dedicated team member who all they do is call people 60 years old, 60 years old and older who've sent $10,000 or more to ensure they're not having part of an elderly abuse or they're being scammed through fraud. And we've saved, I think, over the last quarter, over $800,000 from
Okay.
being scammed or fraud back into their pockets.
All right, we'll take another break. Still lots to uncover. Stay with us. Welcome back to Strictly Money. I'm here with Justin Hartzman, CEO of Coinsmart. We've been talking about what regulating cryptocurrencies could look like. The thought, Justin, is we need clear guidelines to allow for innovation of the ecosystem. And it's a very big, evolving ecosystem. In your mind, what needs to happen?
I think that there needs to be more collaboration with the actual actors in the market. So, us, our company, the other companies, companies internationally who are doing this. And when there's that conversation, innovation happens quicker and education happens quicker. It's no fault of the regulators that they don't understand everything that we do. They're not living and breathing it. They're trying to protect I keep saying this, the investor, and that is their job. And I really respect that. I'm an investor in multiple asset classes outside of crypto alone, and I need that as well. So I'm with them, but the conversation has to be two-way. It can't be, here's what we thought or we know, so where we're going with it. It has to be collaborative. And this is what we're trying to, push upon them, if they're not doing it upon us, is saying, let's come together as a community of crypto asset trading platforms and other blockchain consortiums to say, here's our stance, here's what we're willing to do, here's where we're happy to help you to understand and work together. But stop jamming it down our throats if you don't understand it today. Okay. And I think that's the biggest piece of everything that we have going on. We don't want to be forced into something without having a seat at the table.
So, Justin, if I'm correct, right, there's two ways to transact with crypto. There's your wallet and there's your exchanges. And correct me if I'm wrong, regulators probably have better oversight over exchanges. How do they oversee the wallet piece? Because it is sort of peer-to-peer network.
Yeah, so they don't have access to that right now. They don't have access to it unless they choose to. They could go out and have a chain analysis or other type of company help them in the analytics of wallets out there if they knew the wallet addresses and they wanted to track them the same way that we do on every transaction in and out on our platform today. I don't think there's huge advantage for that because there's other regulation coming to place like travel rule, which we won't get into much today. It's a very complicated situation that's still in flux right now on how we're rolling that out across the whole industry. But the idea is when we send from a centralized exchange, and at the end of the day, that's why centralized exchanges are so important outside of DeFi or decentralized exchanges, because at some point, someone's trying to get money onto the network. At some point, they're trying to get money off the network. And when they're doing that, we're fully KYCing, understanding who our client is. And that's the protection for law enforcement and or regulators to say, there's a point of entry or exit that we can actually understand who's doing that and where, and we can go and have that conversation on an as-need basis. We don't free flow that information. It's outside of our purview to do so. There's a very extensive process for them to go through and do that, and production orders or things like that to get that data. But at the end of the day, a wallet is a place that someone can store it. They can store it with us on our custody in a cold storage, or they can do it themselves. But what we really want to do is make sure that the ability to, there's an underlying thesis, I guess, that in crypto that says, not your crypto, not your keys, not your crypto. So a lot of people want to ensure that they have their own wallet, take it from the exchange, hold it there offline where it can't be accessed. Obviously, there's some, threat to that as well. If you've lost your key or you forget your password, or someone else gets it and gets their hands on it.
Yeah.
So what we do is we hold over 95%, between 95 and 97% of all of our crypto in cold storage in multiple providers, so that we're spreading the risk out. We're offering insurance on those pieces to certain levels, so that we can protect them and really help them in those scenarios.
Okay. Justin, we only have about 45 seconds until the next break. Do you think regulation can or even should bring price stability? And I ask this because the extreme volatility has, in my mind, has undermined its legitimacy.
That's an interesting point, but let's look at what's happened in the overall market. We've seen it go up and down over the last 2 years like a yo-yo, and crypto has sort of been tied and correlated to that at the same time. So would we say that about the traditional stock market? I don't think so. This is a new asset class. It's still being understood. Volatility brings opportunity as well for those who know what they're doing in a trading environment. And it's great for companies like ours that help out there, and transactional volume is important for our growth, for our shareholders, and everyone across the board.
Yeah, I think the key is for those who know what they're doing, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that and the role that education can play. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Justin, one of the things that you are trying to do with Coinsmart is to make crypto accessible. What does that look like? And in your view, why does it matter?
Great question. Our company mantra is making cryptocurrency accessible. Every meeting I end with that. That's everything that we make decisions, they all form around that. And the idea is we want the least amount of clicks, we want the most protection, and we want to help bring the crypto curious into the market. Then we want to level them up through education. That's a really big piece for us here, and make them an ecosystem player, and then be the ecosystem for them down the road. As mentioned in an earlier segment with you, is that we really want to offer products that they need, or they're seeking at other venues right here in Canada. And that's why we have to, and we are working with regulators to make that happen. So build them up, educate them, and get them in there. And the idea was, this was really hard to do back in the day. To get your account registered, to send money in, to do any of the above took days, weeks, months, and you didn't have customer service or support. So it was really important for us, and we set out on day one that we were going to be the first cryptocurrency asset trading platform in the world to offer 24/7, 365 omni-channel live support. So whether you wanted to chat with us, call us, email us, social media, we're there to support you on your first trade, your millionth trade, and everything in between, so that you felt safe and secure in what you're doing. So building that trust and transparency has always been a key role for us, and that's why regulatory first, and then moving into a publicly traded company gives that full transparency and trust for all of our users.
You know, the thing I struggle with is the education piece, right? And I say, and I want to step back because I say, look, crypto is not going away. There's too much money invested in it. There's a lot at stake now, so there's no point in saying it needs to disappear. And while I understand that people are drawn to sort of making that easy money, there are people that are blowing themselves up. Like FOMO is real.
Totally.
So how can the industry come together and educate investors, and what do you think is needed?
Well, I think that's just exactly the point. We send out a lot of content to people to understand, to do research. We have a whole Get Smart section of our platform. We can go there and learn and have tips and tricks and guides on how to do things. But more importantly is, how do we build our platform with the regulators involved? And I think that is what's helping now. When you come and join our platform, there is assessment questions to understand your proficiency within the cryptocurrency environment or investing environment as a whole. And based on those, we set limits on your account. We
Okay.
want to try and help you to adjust those to your risk tolerance based on your ability to invest and your investment timeline. So that's a very important piece to our onboarding process and the availability of products that we make available to our users. And that comes from regulation, which is something that's in traditional finance brought over into the crypto market. And I think it may be cumbersome and people might want to know why they have been restricted. Well, the fact of the matter is, if your income's so low and your education in finance is only medium, well, we can't let you just put in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars when you might not have the knowledge of how to treat that, and it might be cumbersome to you down the line, or imperative to your living at a later period. So we just really want to be there to ensure that we have the right limits for the right people in place, educate them and show them how to do the research, and then get into it and understand that this is not a get rich quick scheme out there. We've seen the market move really quickly up. We've seen it move really quickly down, and everything in between. Invest like you would in anything else. Have a time horizon, set goals on either side, and stick to those as an investor would.
Okay. Justin, we have 45 seconds left. What excites you in the crypto space? One thing.
What excites me is every day there's something different to learn. There's something different to bring on and to bring to our users. The fact that it's innovating around us all the time is incredible. I can't wait to see where the DeFi space goes from now, as we've seen it kind of implode on itself, how it rebuilds. And same thing with the NFT space. It was about apes and monkeys previously, but there's so much more utility into the future where we can fractionalize things like investments, buying of buildings, construction loans, things that really do need the masses to come together and to disrupt the traditional finance industry. So that's exciting.
All right. We really appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to have you back again.
I would love that. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thanks. Justin Hartzman, CEO of Coinsmart. Well, that wraps up this edition of Strictly Money. Do you invest in crypto? Have a story to share? If so, please drop us an email. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay well, stay wise, and stay wealthy.